Good morning, listeners. Ryan Thomas, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, bring you another edition of your favorite podcast. Hopefully this is your favorite podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love podcasting. I love listening to podcasts from, Joe Rogan Experience to Jim Rome to some ESPN stuff, but great place to find podcasts is trainwrecksports.com, the Trainwreck Sports Podcasting Network. Not just my podcast. You already know what I bring to the table. As far as the Thomas Takeover goes, you already know what I bring to the table as far as my analysis, my breakdowns, whether it's mixed martial arts, whether it's NFL football, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's National Hockey League, Sabres hockey. You know what I bring to the table, but there's the Crowd Assist podcast. There's Bullet Points for UB Bulls coverage. There is the Crossing Swords podcast, as well as Trainwreck Tonight, among the many other shows that are available on trainwrecksports.com. You got to go to trainwrecksports.com. Check them out. Trainwreck Sports. This train never stops at Trainwreck Sports. So that has to be said first and foremost. Secondly, today is September 12th, 2019, and we are headed into week 2 of the National Football League season. The Buffalo Bills, week 2 opponent, the New York Giants. Oddly enough, when you take a look at this schedule, the Buffalo Bills play week 1, New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. Week 2, New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. The Bills went to MetLife Stadium, went back to Orchard Park. Now they're going right back to MetLife Stadium, and then they'll be back in Orchard Park next week to take on the Cincinnati Bengals in their home opener at New Era Field. Weird, right? I've never seen that before of a team playing the same stadium away 2 weeks in a row. Never seen that before, but whatever. We'll take it. The Bills coming off a thrilling comeback victory over the New York Jets, 17-16, down 16-0 at one point, getting the Stephen Hauschka field goal, and then 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, one of which a Josh Allen rushing touchdown, those patented legs of Josh Allen getting into the end zone. And then you have the 38-yard touchdown from Josh Allen to John Brown, his new toy, his new wide receiver weapon on this Buffalo Bills offense. John Brown finished the day with 7 receptions, 123 yards, and a touchdown. The largest receiving yard total for any Buffalo Bills receiver in franchise history in their debut as a Buffalo Bill. How about that? John Brown making history last week. Can he make more history this week against the New York Giants? Only time will tell, but I will most definitely break it down for you right here, right now on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So, week 2, the opponent, in order to understand what Buffalo needs to do in order to win this game, we need to understand the opponent at hand. The task at hand is, first and foremost, the New York Giants. Now, I have thrown so much shade at New Jersey. The state of New Jersey, I've thrown so much shade at the Jets, calling them the New Jersey Jets, calling the Giants the New Jersey Giants, because to be quite honest, geographically, the only team that is a New York team in the National Football League is the Buffalo Bills. Right? Being that the Giants play in East Rutherford, practice in New Jersey. Jets practice in New Jersey, play in East Rutherford, obviously at the same stadium. Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, New York, the only team that represents New York truly in the National Football League. We'll just throw that out there for the viewers and listeners out there. So, how will I throw shade at the Giants in this podcast? Well, the Giants fans I have a lot more respect for in comparison to the Jets fans, because I've been to Giants games. I've been to Jets games. I've been to Giants games when they're playing the Bills. I've been to Jets games when they're playing the Bills. And it's obvious that the Giants are a lot more respectful as a fan base. That might be in large part due to the fact that the Giants are in the NFC. The Bills are in the AFC. The Jets are in the AFC and in the Bills division, the AFC East. So there's a little hostility there, being that they're a division rival. And, you know, that the pressure is on in those divisional matchups. Those are really crucial matchups every single season. Those are the games that you really need to try to win, you know, to improve your playoff chances. And for the Buffalo Bills, I think getting that win last week, that comeback win, was massive against an AFC East opponent. But now playing an NFC East opponent, the New York Giants, the Giants are very different as far as their current franchise situation. Maybe they're a little bit step behind the New York Jets in terms of how I evaluate the roster and how I evaluate the direction of their franchise. Quarterback Eli Manning, the two-time Super Bowl winner, 2-0 versus Tom Brady in Super Bowls. I can't believe I'm even saying that to this very moment, that is a reality, but it is. But Eli Manning is safe to say not what he once was, and even what he once was could be kind of poked and prodded, and Eli's always been kind of doubted, which I don't like when people throw shade at Eli. It's not his fault that his body is aging. At some point, all of our bodies will age. We'll all get to a point where we can't do the things that we used to be able to do. Eli Manning is just reaching that point right here, right now in his career as a New York Giants quarterback. And he is stuck between a rock and a hard place because still under contract with the Giants. But who knows how much longer he'll actually be a New York Giant. This could very well be his last season as a New York Giant. Just expected to hold the fort down for rookie quarterback Daniel Jones out of Duke. Teach Daniel Jones anything he possibly can about the game while playing the game, while Daniel Jones holds the clipboard on the sideline. This is a transitional year, but this is not an opponent that I would want Bills fans to look at and scoff at and say, oh, that's a Bills win. I don't think there's any opponent on the Bills schedule this season, with the exception of the Miami Dolphins, that you can honestly look at and say, oh, this should be a win. The Miami Dolphins are obviously known as the worst team in football because they've traded away a lot of their talent. They've moved backwards in order to move forwards, and they've let it be known that they're doing that. Without saying they're doing that, they're doing that. With the New York Giants, are definitely not as good as they once were. They traded away Odell Beckham Jr. Anytime you trade away a player of the talent of OBJ, you're not going to be as good as you were the year before, but they are going to compete. They are going to try to win games, as many games as they can, because Pat Shurmur is coaching for his job, essentially. If this season really goes down the tubes, if this season goes down the tank, you we'll probably see rumblings of him being fired. And I know he's only been there a couple of years, but, you know, owners are owners. They're the boss. They can dictate what the future is for the franchise. If the owner doesn't like the head coach, if the owner is a little bit scratching his head on the head coach, then, you know, you could definitely maybe see Pat Shurmur out of the building in the New York Giants organization. But I definitely feel like the Giants are a team that are not as good as they once were. They're in a state of transition, but they definitely have factors within this matchup that make them very dangerous for the Buffalo Bills, namely Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is a generational talent. Saquon Barkley is a franchise running back. Saquon Barkley has the ceiling to be one of the all-time legends of the sport. And that is if he plays, you know, a long career like an Emmitt Smith. That is if he plays a long career like a Walter Payton. But even a short career, as good as the career of Barry Sanders, Saquon Barkley could put up numbers like that could put him in the all-time rushing yard ranks as one of the best. The moment I saw Saquon Barkley back in his days at Penn State as a freshman, as a even a sophomore as well. I thought, wow, this guy is truly special. Whatever team gets him is really going to be thankful. And I looked at Saquon Barkley as the best player overall of that 2018 draft. The number one player that I would have picked first overall if I was the Cleveland Browns would not have been Baker Mayfield. It would have been Saquon Barkley. Now, that is just based on the fact that I believe if you have the number one overall pick, you got to take the player that you believe is the best. And Cleveland took the player that they believed was the best of that entire draft, which was Baker Mayfield. But I believe that Saquon Barkley was the best player in that draft class. If you needed a quarterback that bad, obviously you take one, whatever. That's another story for another day. But I would have selected Saquon Barkley at that first overall selection. He's just that good. He's that talented. He has great vision, great elusiveness. He can run you over. He could out-juke you. Really, he can do it all as an NFL running back, which is why in fantasy football leagues, this guy's drafted in the top 3. If he's drafted any later than 3rd, then somewhere somebody reached for somebody else that was out of the ordinary. I have a league where Le'Veon Bell was drafted first overall. I thought that was a little crazy in the TTSP fantasy football league, but here I am sitting at 14th, being that I had the lowest point total of week 1, and other teams are going in other directions, I guess you could say. So we'll move on from that. We'll hope that we can get a W in week 2, but Saquon Barkley is definitely a factor that the Buffalo Bills have to key on in this matchup. He's somebody that is most obviously the best player offensively. Now, a huge factor in this game is whether or not Sterling Shepard is actually going to suit up. Sterling Shepard was in concussion protocol. He has not been cleared yet. To my understanding, I could do a little bit of quick research on Sterling Shepard, being that he actually is on one of my fantasy teams. Sterling Shepard is still questionable, and he did not practice Wednesday, did not practice yesterday. So there is reports and rumblings that Shepard has been experiencing some concussion-like symptoms since after the Week 1 loss to the Cowboys. He remains day-to-day, but his week isn't off to a good start in terms of his availability against the Bills. If Shepard sits, the Giants would be down to Cody Latimer, Benny Fowler, and T.J. Jones at receiver. Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley would obviously be factors. And that's my next factor in the game, would be Evan Ingram. This guy's big, he's strong, he can block, he can catch passes, obviously. He's a guy that I think can obviously do some damage to your secondary. He's a little bit of a matchup nightmare. But for the Buffalo Bills, I don't believe that they have many secondary weaknesses. I believe that their secondary is actually ranks among the best in the National Football League. As far as the ability for this secondary to completely take things over in a game. Between Trey White, between Jordan Poyer, between Micah Hyde, this is a really good group, a real good trio. And then the Bills added Kevin Johnson, who I was shocked was cut by the Texans. Here's a former first-round pick, I believe in the 2015 NFL Draft, former first-round draft choice, played his rookie deal, was not re-signed, and Buffalo scoops him up. Now, he definitely had his fair share of injuries, but to cut a first-round draft choice after his rookie deal, I was shocked by that. I was thrilled that Buffalo was actually able to pick him up. I thought he made quite a few nice plays, had a couple deflections out there last week as Sam Darnold tried to, sink some passes in, drop some dimes. Kevin Johnson wasn't having it. I like him a lot. Levi Wallace is another good corner out of Bama that was undrafted, that was a diamond in the rough for the Buffalo Bills. But we'll see how this defense kind of carries over their success from week 1 against the New York Jets to week 2 versus the New York Giants. I definitely feel that there is areas of improvement for this Buffalo Bills team. I mean, to go beyond that week 1 game and to really nitpick it, you don't really want to nitpick a win like that. but you do want to look at what went wrong the first half. Really what went wrong was just tactical errors on the part of the Buffalo Bills, turning the ball over, not essentially sustaining drives either. When they weren't turning the ball over, they weren't sustaining drives. They weren't putting long drives together. They have to do that in the first half. They have to set the tone. They have to come out firing on all cylinders, and they have to have a concise game plan offensively for how they're going to tackle this Giants defense, which isn't really a great defense, but Buffalo's offense has a lot of new parts. So sometimes when an offense has new parts, it can make a defense that's not so great look good. And I don't want to see that in the first half of this game. I want to see Buffalo come out firing on all cylinders with a clear, concise game plan as to how they are going to attack the New York Giants defense, whether it's via the air or via the ground. What I would do is get Devin Singletary the ball in his hands early. Get him the ball in space. Running back passes in the flat from Josh Allen to Devin Singletary, that would not be a problem in my humble opinion to see Devin Singletary carry the ball. He really took that game over in the second half versus the New York Jets. 4 carries, 70 yards, almost total over 100 yards of total offense, and he just really got touches from the third quarter on. So Singletary is an X factor. That's a guy that could be one of the better rookie running backs in recent memory, as well as a guy like Josh Jacobs, who had a lot of success in his Oakland Raiders debut on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. That's somebody that I also have to throw out there as a running back that did really, really well. Singletary needs to get the ball. If the Giants are going to try to one up the Bills offensively versus the Bills defense from a quarterback to tight end perspective, I'd also like to see the tight ends get more involved in this game. Dawson Knox, James Sweeney, the tight end, 7th round draft choice out of Boston College. Tyler Kroft, I do not know the situation with his injury. I haven't heard much, which to me could signal a sign that he is not ready. He is still limited in practice, and we'll see what happens as the week trudges along. Yesterday, they practiced Wednesday. He was limited with a foot, obviously his foot injury. And it's the same story as last week, essentially, that he was limited in practice last Wednesday, which led to an inactive start to his Buffalo Bills career. Tommy Sweeney, I said James Sweeney, I botched that. Tommy Sweeney and Dawson Knox are lined up to obviously be the tight ends for the Buffalo Bills. And, Tyler Kroft was looked at as this solid acquisition by the Buffalo Bills this past offseason. And he is still injured, which is not a good sign, not a great sign, but a sign nonetheless that, he should be back within the next couple weeks. If not this week, should be back within the next couple weeks. We'll find out, though. So, if Kroft isn't in there, I'd like to see Josh Allen get the ball to Tommy Sweeney or Dawson Knox, get the tight ends involved a little bit more. Obviously, the new dimension of Cole Beasley. I feel like there is chemistry to be made between Josh Allen and Cole Beasley. I feel like John Brown and Josh Allen are really in sync as far as Allen throwing the ball to him. But Beasley being a small receiver, listed as 5'9", I believe he's actually shorter than that. Probably 5'8", just to not to dumb down Cole Beasley, but I think he is a little bit shorter than that. A little bit shorter than 5'9". Josh Allen needs to build some chemistry with him. Josh Allen needs to get the ball to Cole Beasley early as well, because these short intermediate routes with Cole Beasley, with Zay Jones, if Josh Allen can throw those as completions, those will take the pressure off of Josh Allen. Sort of give him that, sigh of relief out there, because Josh Allen, I feel like, gets a little bit hyped up too hyped up for his own good. Really, that first drive with the New York Jets, and I said this in the post-game show, that first drive, they were looking really good. Josh Allen was getting the ball out of his hand quick, finding the open receiver, moving the chains, West Coast offense, trudging along down the field, and somewhat looking like Tom Brady out there. Really, New England's offense is that short, intermediate, Brady to Edelman, Brady to what once was Wes Welker, what once was Amendola, or what was once Chris Hogan, but now in today's day and age, it'll be Philip Dorsett, who had a real big game week 1, and obviously Antonio Brown is going to be a matchup nightmare as always. If he can, stay out of the headlines for worse reasons. More on that later, but really that's what Buffalo's offense is gearing towards, trying to make it as similar to the Patriots as possible, because Brian Dable worked under Josh McDaniels and worked in that New England Patriots coaching staff. He knows what works, and he knows that Buffalo has the personnel to make that work. Will they use that to the fullest of their ability? Will they use that to the fullest of their potential? We'll find out. But I believe that this Buffalo Bills offense, personnel-wise, is actually an offense in comparison to last year. You go back to last year, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie, no disrespect to those guys. Those guys stepped up big time last year for the Buffalo Bills, but this offense is definitely more of an NFL offense. You have NFL vets on this offense, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Frank Gore, that can contribute. Now, a little bit of a head-scratcher here. Frank Gore listed as the number 1 running back on the depth chart. Sean McDermott not really playing his hand at the running back position, but it's really obvious who the number 1 guy is, and that's Devin Singletary. Right? I think we can all agree to that. Defensively, if the Buffalo Bills can pressure Eli Manning as good as I think they can, this should be an easy dub for Buffalo. But if they can't pressure him, then Eli Manning can pick you apart. No matter who his receivers are, he can pick you apart. He'll find a way. If he's got protection, that's the worst thing that you could give to Eli Manning. And the Giants have improved their offensive line a little bit, trying to open up running lanes for Saquon and obviously trying to protect Eli Manning. Those are the keys for the Giants, I believe, as an offense, to protect Eli and to open up running lanes for Saquon Barkley. If they can do that, no matter who they got at receiver, no matter who they got at tight end, you can expect some decent things to take place. And I like the idea of this Buffalo Bills defense pressuring Eli Manning. I think there's a lot of mismatches from Buffalo's defensive perspective to that of the Giants' offense. Mismatches in terms of blitzing safeties. Buffalo can do that. Rotating defensive linemen, offering new power rushers or speed rushers. Buffalo has that. This Bills defense is very special, and I think that a lot of people have kind of humbly looked past that for whatever reason. That since Sean McDermott has stepped into the building, this Bills defense has gotten extremely better, and that says a lot because Rex Ryan's hiring kind of ripped the defense apart. The success that Buffalo's defense had with Mike Pettin, and then especially with Jim Schwartz, was kind of thwarted by the hiring of Rex Ryan. So Sean McDermott coming in here and really bringing that defense back, but almost putting it on a new level, adding new athleticism, adding corners like Trey White, adding safeties like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. Those were great decisions by this Buffalo Bills brass and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. And I really like what they've done also on the interior, adding guys like Harrison Phillips and Ed Oliver in the last 2 drafts, the last 2 years. Those are 2 defensive tackles that should be a major part of Buffalo's defense for many years to come. And they've built this defense up younger, better, faster, stronger. And that's not just a Kanye West song for no reason. That's not just a line in a Kanye West song for no reason. Younger, better, faster, stronger. Stronger, bigger, faster, stronger. Whatever the line is, I don't even remember anymore. That song's so old. You get the point. This Bills defense is something to be seen. I am going to go out on a limb and predict that Buffalo will win this game. I think Josh Allen will be better in the first half in this game, taking what the defense gives him, not getting overzealous, not getting overhyped. It's the little things with Josh Allen that when he improves those little things, boy, is this guy going to be good. The Bills just have to continue to build around him, provide him with the playmakers that he needs to enhance his weaknesses and make those weaknesses into strengths, and you will see Josh Allen improve. You will see Josh Allen get better. We already know the guy can really be a mobile force out there. He's very tough to pin down, very tough to track in that pocket, and likes to extend plays. And sometimes looks to throw to a fault, but you know we'll see. Hopefully, he does not make bad decisions. I don't think Josh Allen is inaccurate. I think it's his timing on his throws. Timing, not inaccuracy. 65% completion percentage last week. I expect that to be around the same area, 65 to 68% completion percentage. And Buffalo will definitely see the benefit in that. Cole Beasley's numbers I expect to have a little bit of an uptick this week. John Brown I expect to have another good game. Frank Gore, hopefully, I hope Frank Gore can contribute a little bit more than he did last week as far as the stat line went. I thought, he really didn't show a lot. Maybe TJ Yeldon will be thrown into this game plan a little bit more as a pass-catching running back. I expect to see more exotic play calling offensively, defensively. I expect to see it. I expect Buffalo to win this one 24-10, a 14-point victory, 24-10. Bills get 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen throws for 2. Devin Singletary runs for 1, making the 21 points there. Stephen Hauschka chips in a field goal from about 45 yards. And the guys that get the receiving touchdowns, I'm going to anticipate that John Brown gets a receiving touchdown. And Cole Beasley gets a receiving touchdown. His first as a Buffalo Bill. That's how I see it. Eli Manning, not a great day. Probably under 200 at about $180. Maybe 2 interceptions. Saquon Barkley under 100 yards for him. Don't forget the Bills held Le'Veon Bell to just 60 yards rushing in last week's contest versus the Jets. 98 total yards, I believe, for Le'Veon Bell in terms of his receiving ability. Saquon Barkley is going to have to contribute via the air, via the passing game as well in order to really have a semi-decent day for fantasy owners. This is not a good matchup for fantasy owners in week 2 that have drafted Saquon Barkley maybe as the first overall pick in a fantasy football draft. Here you are, week 2, and Saquon's already got a tough matchup. He had a tough matchup last week against Dallas, but last week against Dallas, game flow, whatever you want to call it, definitely contributed to Saquon Barkley's game. Last week, he only had 11 rushing attempts for 120 rushing yards. He had a 40-yard run, 6 targets, 4 catches, 19 receiving yards. He did also have a fumble. So in my league, that registered 18.9 receiving points. He's projected for 26 points in my fantasy league. I don't think he's going to get that. I just don't think he's going to get that. Fantasy monster, yes, but this Bills defense is different. Different animal. We'll see. This guy is a really special running back, but nonetheless, I do think that it'll be 24-10 Bills. I think the Bills will move to 2-0, heading into an awesome Week 3 matchup versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a home opener next week at the Ralph. I might be in attendance for that one, maybe. But if not, you will be able to catch the Takeover post-game show on Studio D on Trainwreck Sports, Twitter, Periscope, whatever you want to call it. You can follow that at Trainwreck Sports, and you can definitely follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take for more Bills analysis, for more MLB analysis. We're really getting into the crux of things. I'm in the semifinals of my fantasy baseball league, and I'm looking to break into the finals for another run at a championship. Hopefully, we're up 6-4 right now. Hopefully, we can close out the show and make this a win. We got 3 pickups left this week. Haven't made any pickups yet. We'll see what happens. But week 2, I think the Bills will win this one 24-10, maybe 24-17 if I'll give the Giants a little bit of slack. But I think this will be a Buffalo Bills victory nonetheless. 2-0 heading into their week 3 matchup versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. You can subscribe to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can follow it on Spotify, and you can also tune into this podcast on trainwrecksports.com. Join the takeover. Follow me again on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. We're over 1,085. Really want to get to 2 Gs. I think I should already be there, but that's neither here nor there. Follow me on Twitter. Make it happen. Take care and enjoy the game Sunday. Plenty more on the podcast coming up throughout the week. Stay tuned.